Now welcome to this video called So You Think You're Doing Gann Angles Part 3, and the first one of the series was called So You Think You're Doing Gann Angles, and this is the very last frame of that video, and you can see that I have an angle on for the future, and I did this video on the 27th of July 2011, and I published it in September. And so you can see it's not hindsight. You can see where the angle is, and that would be a point in the future where I'd be looking for a change in trend. And so, like I said, this video is actually a follow-up to actually see what happens after. So this is what it looked like at the time when I did the video, and that's the 4x1 angle on in exactly the same position as it was on the last frame of the video from July 2011. So what happened? Well, the market goes shooting down, and then the market goes up. Now we're approaching the 5x1 angle again, this one here, from the all-time high, but I'm not actually interested in making that trade again because it's already worked once. Now, one of the big rules in technical analysis is something called trendlines, and from my point of view, a trend line, not always, but the vast majority of the cases, are just hindsight. And what people do, they would go to the all-time high, which is where this 6x1 here is from, and they would draw an angle from the all-time high through this new high here, which they would have to see work before they would use it. So in other words, it's hindsight. And then they would be looking to short the market when it comes back to the trend line. And you can see at first glance it looks as if it works. The market hits the 6x1 and then it goes down over the next 2 weeks. But if you actually look, what then happens is it goes up in one day everything that had actually fallen in 2 weeks. And if a trend line does work, it tends to be a bit of a mug's play to get you into the market before it catches you out big style. And the same thing applies with the minus 5x1 angle from the all-time high, which I'll simulate. So once that high is made there, which they would only see after the event, they would then draw a line through here, and they would see that as a possible shorting opportunity in the future. So I wouldn't be interested the second time, because remember, the angles are drawn before the market ever gets there. An example of that is this one here. The 4x1 is not based on anything in the past, just that I know where the all-time high is. And so let's see what happens. The market comes down, starts to rise, and we're now into early 2012, and then it reaches the minus 5x1. So the people who do technical analysis would now be looking to short that. For me, it's a mug's play. It's a trade not to be made, even though it is a Gann angle. From my point of view now, it's now a trend line. It wasn't a trend line here, but it is a trend line now. So what happens? The market goes down for a couple of days and then goes up very quickly to catch out the people who traded on the trend line. Now we're now approaching the next angle, which is the one I showed you. I had on the last frame of the video that I did in July of 2011. So the market is going up, and then this here actually is where it touches the 4x1 angle. And in fact, I've only actually made 2 trades on this since I did the video in July 2011. Sorry, when I say 2 trades, 2 shorting trades on the S&P. And the first of those 2 trades was I shorted the market when it got to the 4x1. I didn't do it exactly when it got there. I wanted to see a little bit of strength, a little bit of weakness. So I waited 20 minutes and then I got into the trade, which is my 20-minute rule. But to use that rule, you've got to be pretty sure that you've got a good signal. And then what happened was the market went down. Now, the way the market scaled here, it doesn't look like a very big fall, but in fact, if we rescaled it, say from an intraday point of view, it's a massive fall. The market in one day, it went down for 2 or 3 days, and then in one day it fell over 24 points on the S&P, which was about 300 points on the Dow at the time. It was a huge fall. It actually fell in one day what it had taken it 3 or 4 weeks for it to go up before. So it was a big fall. I then moved my stop loss to my break-even point, and unfortunately it went back up again, and I broke even. So it's important. One of Gann's rules is never let a profit run into a loss. Now, that doesn't mean that as soon as you make a trade and it goes into a loss situation, you get out. What it means is when you get into a trade and it goes your way and you're in reasonable profit, you then move your stop loss to your break-even point. Yeah. However, broke even, but it was the exact turning point of the market, and because I made the trade there where the market turned pretty much, it meant I could have a very, very close stop loss, which means I could make a very small loss if I got it wrong, because I knew that if the market went through there, then I was wrong and I have to get out. And then, as you can see, the market screams up very, very quickly. Now, the next angle in the series, what's that going to be? Well, we'll take the last, this one's a 4, that's a 5, and the last one was a 6, so 6, 5, 4. So what would you expect the next one to be? Well, you'd expect the next one to be a minus 3 by 1, which I'll put on, and I can put the next one on, which would be a minus 2 by 1, which is right up there. Now, because I wrote the software, it does some clever stuff. Because I knew that that 4 by 1 was drawn from the all-time high, all I have to do is click on it, and I can then draw my other angles from there. Okay, without having to go all the way back to 2007 to draw the angle from the same place. Saves time. So let's see what happens. So I'm looking to short it on the minus 3 by 1 angle if it gets there, and it comes down, but there was no reason to short it because it hadn't reached an angle as far as I was concerned, and then it came down, and then it had a very fast rise up, and I have to say there was an absolutely fantastic signal. There was loads of Gann percentages, it had absolutely everything, but it hasn't quite got there yet, so I haven't quite done it. And in fact, unfortunately, that's as close as it actually got. But there's another way of looking at it. The market, just before it got to the angle, was going up incredibly quickly. In other words, it would be encouraging people to go long of the market, and it would probably be on good news. But I was looking to do something completely different. I was actually looking to actually short the market. I wasn't looking to buy it. And it's just as important to know when not to make a trade as it is to make a trade. In fact, I would actually say it's far more important. So in other words, it hasn't quite reached the 3 by 1, so I didn't quite make the trade. And with hindsight, it does happen to be the top of the market, and down it goes. But there's another way of looking at it, which it hasn't actually quite got there yet. And so time goes by, the market starts to go up again, and then we get close to the angle, which is this one here, and then I was getting all excited because it was about to touch it and I was about to make the trade, and then it got to my angle, and at this stage here I had to decide whether I was going to make the trade or not, and I decided not to. Now you can see about 2 days later it didn't quite touch the angle, and in fact I was very, very close to making the trade on that day. So let's look at the reason why I didn't make the trade. Now you might think that the S&P future, which is what this is, works exactly the same as the S&P cash. They're the same thing. But one of the things I've discovered over the years is that just because you'd expect two things to work in exactly the same way doesn't mean they do. So for example, the FTSE cash chart works on different angles to the FTSE futures chart, and the same thing applies with the S&P. So when it got to this level here, I also look at the cash chart at the same time. Now this here is the actual cash chart, and what you can actually see, so the cash is different to the future, of course. It actually works in a completely different way coming down from the all-time high. Now this high here I showed you before was made on I think it was a 5 by 1, but you can see this one here is made on a 19 by 4, but you need to know what the master time factor is. And then the next top high, which I showed you was made on minus 4 by 1 on the futures chart, is made on a 15 by 4. Now it works on odd numbers, every other odd number with 4 in the master time factor. So 19, 15, so the next one wouldn't be 13, it's every other odd number, so the next one would be 11. Now when I showed you the other chart, which is the futures chart, you can see from the title up here, you can see that little high there, it was very, very close to the angle, which I can't quite get to, which is actually there. If we go back to the cash chart, that is the same moment in time. And you can see in this case that the actual angle is it's a lot lower than the other one, and then we had a big rise up to actually reach the angle. Whereas on the futures chart, okay, you can see it looks different. And in fact, that's why I didn't make the trade. I didn't make the trade because the angles were in different places, but that was completely different to when it got to the 4x1, which was the 15x4 on the cash chart. They hit the angles at exactly the same place, and in fact this one didn't do it at exactly the same place, and that's why I didn't make the trade. And that in fact is when I changed my mind completely. I went from being very bearish of the market to being bullish. Now just because I've become bullish because it's broken through the angle doesn't mean it's a buy, anything but. Yeah? It just means that I've changed what I'm looking to do. So I was now looking for buying opportunities. Now the market does go down, and it goes down for quite a long time, but it doesn't really do a lot. It's going up and down like a yo-yo, going down incredibly slowly. And then in one day it went up like an absolute rocket, catching out all the people who were shorting the market in this bit that was going down. And that's why it's very important that you trade things at the right time. But that means we've got the next angle for the future, and the next angle for the future is a minus 2x1. And if we look at the cash chart, it would be a minus 7x4. And if we bring that up to date a little bit more, it would look something like that. So let's go back to the futures chart. So that is the next angle where I was looking for top of the market. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a signal that I put on our focus site about what I thought was going to happen when it got there, to kind of show you that it wasn't actually hindsight. Now let's go with a trading video of the 14th of the 9th 2012 on the S&P future, and as explained in the video, I think we've got a major level coming up here. here. So I've got the major angle, but also, as I've mentioned in the past, the cash works on slightly different angles, so I'm going to be watching that as well, which is a little bit lower on this one, so it'll be watching both of those charts combination. So that's where I'm watching. Could be major. So I put that on for our focus clients on the 14th of September 2012, saying that I thought there might be a major top made at this level here, and this is actually what happened. The market went up very quickly, and it then touched exactly the 2x1 here, and it was actually a Friday, and I'm in the UK, so I thought going to the pub was more important than trading it actually there, and I never trade on a Friday, so I decided I'd do it on Monday. So when the market opened on a Monday, I shorted it, so I got in at 44, 55, 56ish, somewhere around about there, and I had my stop loss above the 2x1 angle. So I knew if it went through the 2x1 by any meaningful amount, then I knew I was probably wrong. At the same time, this was the cash chart of the S&P, and so I told you that this one was working on different angles, and so I was waiting for it to get to the 7x4 in this particular case, and it actually got to the 7x4 on the same day, and the next day was there. So let's go back to the futures chart, and this is what happened. The market came down, then went back up again. It touched the minus 2x1, came back down again, then went back up again, and as of today the market looks like that. Now let's get this in perspective. This is October of 2012. I put the video on the chart, so I put the video on YouTube in September, but it actually September 2011. So none of it is hindsight. You can actually see the only two shorting trades I've actually made on the S&P were here, sorry, 2 days back, sorry, was actually there and here. Now I thought it was going to top out there, but I didn't do it until Monday, which was actually there. So those are the two trades from a shorting point of view that I've made on the S&P. And in fact, as we stand, we've now formed a triple top, which Gann says is one of his weakest formations. But it's important to know what he also said. He also said if you ever go up to the same level for a fourth time, then you almost always break through. So if it was to go up again, that would be a different situation, and I would then change my mind. And of course, the great thing about Gann, and something you can't do with Trendlines of course, is I can always put on the next angle, which would be that. And on the cash chart, it would be that, which, if we bring this up to date, looks like that. So that's why it's incredibly important to actually use the futures chart and the cash chart at the same time. So if you don't find that absolutely amazing, that the actual future is actually predictable, and really, this is going to sound daft, has really got nothing to do with people buying and selling anything, but unfortunately that's the only conclusion I can come to, because I'm pretty good at finding turning points in markets months, years before it ever gets there.